Hello and welcome to the Board of Education meeting being held on Tuesday, January 16th. I'm calling the meeting to order at 6 p.m. If we can please call the roll.
Dr. Henry? Dr. Henry? Here. Mr. Collins?
I'm here.
Mrs. Hostler? Mrs. Assef?
Here.
Mrs. Caforio?
Here.
Mrs. Troutman? Here. Mrs. Arvanites?
Here. 6 board members present, 1 absent. Can we have a motion to go into closed session?
I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. 5 ILCS 122C1. Collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. 5 ILCS 122C2. And discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, whether for purposes of approval by the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by Section 2.065 ILCS 122C21.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Troutman, second by Ms. Caforio. Can we please call the vote?
Mrs. Troutman, yes. Mrs. Caforio?
Yes.
Mrs. Assef?
Yes.
Mrs. Arvanites?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
And Dr. Henry?
Yes. 6 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent. The board will move into closed session. Hello and welcome to the Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. The board has been in closed session since 6 p.m. for the items listed on the agenda. We have 7 board members present and 0 absent. At this time, I ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Great, and we'll start our meeting as we always do with spotlights and recognition. First up, we would like to honor Mr. Mark Giuliani, who could not be here with us tonight, but we still want to congratulate him for his accomplishment as being awarded the Girls Water Polo IHSA Coach of the Year Award. So congratulations to Mr. Giuliani. What a wonderful opportunity for our kids to have you working with them every day. Congratulations. Next is our middle school students and the Illinois Music Education Association. If the students can come on up and stand right front and center here for us, we'd appreciate it.
We're going to ask Dr. Baker to come on up and first and say a few words prior to the proclamation.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Campbell. As you all know, I'm Patrick Baker. I'm the District Director of Arts, PE, and Health. It's an honor and privilege to be with you this evening as we celebrate the accomplishments of some of our outstanding music students from our middle schools. The Illinois Music Education Association District 1 Junior Festival involves students selected from schools across the Chicago and western and southwestern suburban area. These students prepared for and successfully completed a rigorous audition in order to be accepted into one of the highly selective junior festival ensembles. We commend each of these students for their tenacious work ethic and their commitment to their artistry. Each of them has done an excellent job representing themselves, their ensemble, their school, District 205, and the entire Elmhurst community. On behalf of myself, the middle school music team, your teachers, and the entire District 205 music faculty, we extend our proudest congratulations to each and every one of these students. Finally, thank you to our board, our district administration, and building administration, to the families of our students, and to our community for ongoing support and commitment to our programs. What we do would not be possible without you. Thank you all, and have a wonderful night.
Stay right here, please. There's a part B. Thank you. We're not done yet.
Or this is farther. Congratulations to all of you. I am going to present the proclamation. There's a lot of names on here, so I apologize if I mispronounce any of them. Whereas the Illinois Music Educators Association, ILMEA, competitions are considered the most prestigious statewide student recognition program in music education, and whereas every year thousands of middle school students from schools across the greater Chicagoland area audition for the honor of being selected for the Illinois Music Education Association, ILMEA, District 1 Festival. And whereas this program recognizes some of the best musicians in the state of Illinois and rewards excellence on the part of individual students while encouraging further music study and artistry. And whereas the following students were selected for the Junior ILMEA District 1 festivals: Charlie Connor, band and trombone; Nicholas Delagianis, band French horn; Scout Gerald, band and flute; Axel Harstead, band percussion; Owen Hurdle, band trumpet; Nathan Markwald, band and percussion; Evan Moy, band trombone; Arjun Shoipage, band percussion; Kirsten Zhao, band French horn; Zoe Kircher, band flute; Yorgis Malamis, band baby clarinet; Rachel Warnick, band baby cornet; Nathaniel Wick, band and trumpet; Ainsley William, band oboe; Libby Anderson, chorus alto; Olivia Bricker, chorus soprano; Leopoldo Fernandez, chorus tenor; Sarah Hudson, chorus alto; Lucy Messersmith, chorus soprano, Reland Michael, chorus alto, Hannah Peterson, chorus alto, Peter Russo, chorus bass, Nate Schau, chorus tenor, Lainey Shish, chorus alto, Liam Smith, chorus soprano, Ethan Sullivan, chorus tenor, Cleo Wang, chorus alto, Andy Brown, chorus alto, Tia Shiriel, chorus alto, Michael Dorco, chorus tenor, Lucy Schmood, jazz band, jazz drum set, Carlin Janowski, jazz band 2, jazz drum set, Madison Layton, orchestra viola, Sam Layton, orchestra violin, Charlie Mules, orchestra viola, Bryn Asgadam, orchestra violin, Meg Galwas, orchestra violin, Olivia Moore, orchestra violin, Sejan Peel, orchestra cello, Ava Radke, orchestra violin, Alexis Basov, orchestra violin. And whereas this accomplishment brings pride and prestige to Bryan Middle School, Churchville Middle School, Sandburg Middle School, District 205, and the community of Elmhurst. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education and Administration of Elmhurst Community Unit School District 205 express congratulations to these students, their parents, and the entire District 205 music faculty for their outstanding accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you, and again, wonderful accomplishment for our students, especially at the middle school level, to engage in this work, and we're really excited to see what you do in music education throughout your high school career, too. Next up on our spotlight and recognition, we have Dr. Hurd, principal of York High School, here to give us a little glimpse of York.
Thank you so much. All right, so I am so privileged to be here today to just give, like the president said, a glimpse into what's happening at York. A couple weeks ago, I ran into a friend from college and they said, "Hey, how's your first year as principal of York going, and what is York really like?" I said, "Gosh, that's a really easy answer. York is made up of amazing students, phenomenal staff members, and a wildly supportive community." And so we've kind of just listed out. Those of you who know me know that I could talk for hours about all the amazing things happening at York, but I have 5 minutes. So I'm just going to give a lot of the highlights. And so our absolutely amazing York students and dedicated staff. Our students excel inside and outside of the classroom. I've been impressed with the academic achievements and our extracurricular achievements at York. This year, York had 3 National Merit semifinalists, 22 National Merit commended students, 11 National Hispanic Recognition Award recipients, and 1 student who received the National African American Recognition Award. For the first time in a long time, all York juniors sat for the PSAT in October. It was digital. We all survived. We did in the field house, thanks to Rudy and his team. This year, York staff has focused on establishing high standards and high levels of support for our students and really being intentional about making sure that they have success in the classroom. We are using national and state assessment data along with attendance and grades to identify our students who need additional supports. On our campus, these supports look like lunchtime academic intervention, Saturday academy, free and reduced rate SAT tutoring for juniors. I appreciate also that our staff has been open and reflective in changing some of our practices based on data and feedback. This includes some updates to grading practices and the addition of cumulative summative assessments at the end of each term. Our staff puts our students first and has a vested interest in the success of all of our students at York. As someone who is married to a third generation York Duke, I am keenly aware of the rich traditions that exist at York. I've had the opportunity this past semester to participate in a lot of these traditions, including homecoming, the Veterans Day Assembly, and our fall play. We're also starting some new traditions at York, which includes the expansion of Hispanic Heritage Month celebrations and reestablishing what it means to be a Duke, with a focus on every member of our school community feeling warm and welcome and like they're at home when they are at York High School. I look forward to continuing to experience all of the traditions. Plug for our winter musical that's coming up. If you haven't got tickets, there's still some available. So excited about that this weekend. But I look forward to all the rest of our traditions at York coming up. We also know that our students have a lot of academic and extracurricular opportunities. This is something that has really resonated with me, and it's been spectacular to see firsthand. We are truly a comprehensive high school with diverse course offerings. We have over 70 clubs that students can join and dozens of athletic programs. This year, we've racked up accolades through the Technology Center of DuPage, speech, chess, math teams, Model UN, mock trial, just to name a few. I've witnessed firsthand the camaraderie and wild competitiveness of our athletes. It's been spectacular. I love cheering on our athletes at conference and non-conference competitions, and I will never forget the experience of being down at Peoria at the state cross-country meet when our girls brought home first place. I was lucky to be there with my family, and it was just a special moment for a first-year principal. The part that I am very, very appreciative is to work in a supportive and engaged community. And this has to do with a lot of you in this space, but also the members of the community that care so deeply about our schools. And it's been wonderful hosting our District 205 Board of Education members on campus at York. We just did a board tour last week and really getting to see what's happening at York and what our teachers are doing, but also what our students are accomplishing. Additionally, working with parents groups like the Boosters, our Bilingual Parents Association, and the PTSA has given me the opportunity to listen to our community and make sure that we are meeting their wants and their needs, and to learn more about the Elmhurst community as a whole. Thank you so much for your time to allow me to get the spotlight, and I am so deeply appreciative of all of your support and your willingness to come and learn and to allow me to be in this space, and go Dukes. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hurt, for that wonderful overview. And we know how busy the high school can be, and just all the work that you've put in with your staff to maintain wonderful opportunities for our kids. And it's true, they're having great experiences across the board. So thank you. And thank you to all who braved the cold and came out to be honored here tonight. We hope you all have a good evening, and back in person tomorrow is what I hear. Thank you. Okay, item number 5, we can move on to our public comments. The public comments section of the board meeting provides an opportunity for community members to share information and perspectives with the Board of Education. And while the board does not respond during public comments, we are listening and thoughtfully considering all messages being shared. Each of us have high expectations for our community and ask that public comments are respectful and do not mention any individuals by name. The way in which we publicly engage when sharing differing perspectives is an opportunity to model healthy and respectful discourse for our students and greater community while creating an environment of collaboration and partnership. There will be up to 30 minutes allocated for public comments, with up to 3 minutes per speaker concerning items on this agenda. The board secretary will give a reminder when you have 30 seconds left. I know we have some speakers, so Mrs. Troutman?
First speaker is Mr. Lee.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. As we're exploring the potential adjustment to our middle school schedules, I present an alternative approach to prioritizing linguistic diversity. Currently, the students must choose the dilemma of picking between arts Spanish, tech and Spanish, orchestra, or band and Spanish. My proposal advocates that we maintain the existing allocation for science and social studies while dedicating the time taken from ELA and math instructions to Spanish language instruction. The significance of learning a foreign language, especially in the early stage of life, cannot be emphasized enough. Research, including the study from Harvard University Center for Brain Science, underscore the exceptional ability for young minds to acquire language. While middle school is traditionally viewed as the later stage of language exposure, it serves as a valuable opportunity to enrich a students' linguistic opportunities. I acknowledge the importance of general science and social studies. However, it's crucial to recognize that as the students progress through the middle school, the learning a foreign language becomes increasingly challenging compared to studies of general science and social studies. So the cognitive benefits derived from early language learning is substantial. Exposure to a second language stimulates brain functions, fosters cognitive flexibility, creativity, problem solving, etc. And initiating a language learning during the formative years lays the groundwork for comprehensive cognitive development. Multilingualism extends beyond cognitive benefits to encompass cultural appropriations for global understanding. And research from American Council on the Teaching of a Foreign Language emphasizes that studying a foreign language provides a unique window to different cultures, fostering empathies and tolerance. And also now we can talk about economic advantages associated with multilingualism, as well as supported by all kinds of research, as highlighted by comprehension study from University of Florida Language for Latin American Studies. Multilingual individuals hold a distinct advantage in job markets, making them sought-after candidates capable of navigating diverse linguistic environments. And so we have to understand that academic benefits further underscore the importance of early language learning. Multilingual students often outperforms their monolingual peers in tasks requiring attention, inhibition, short-term memories. Those cognitive advantages contribute to
30 seconds.
Improve academic performance, improve all kinds of subjects. And also now I have to, last point, it's crucial to acknowledge that Spanish is the second most spoken language in the United States, holds significance in our society. Over 40 million Americans speak Spanish natively. So I would suggest we allocate the time to Spanish study instead of currently the proposal for general science and social science study. Thank you very much.
Next speaker, Mr. Chavez.
Hi, good evening. Tonight I want to share information with the board, the administration, the community about the substandard academic proficiency in the district. When I come here, it's always great to see students being recognized for all the things that they're doing, and we are doing some great things in District 205, but we do need to serve the entire community of students, not just some of the students. So to review some of the things that we've talked about, not a single D205 middle school is above 50% meeting standard math. Bryan's at 47, Sandburg at 45, Churchville at 35% meeting standard. Middle school ELA test scores are a bit better, but still far below standard. At York, 55% of students are proficient in English, 53 are meeting standard in math. While there was incremental improvement last year, the district still remains far off track. A recent article in the New York Times, not Fox News, suggests that test scores do matter after all. The article is called "The Misguided War on the SAT." It suggests that colleges have fled standardized tests on the theory that they hurt diversity, helping to predict college hurt diversity, but that's not where what the research shows. Research has increasingly shown that standardized test scores contain real information, helping to predict college grades, chances of graduation, and post-college success. Test scores are more reliable than high school grades, partly because of grade inflation in recent years. A solid score for a student from a less privileged background is often a sign of enormous potential. The Dean of Admissions at MIT, one of the few schools to have reinstated its test requirements, said, just getting straight A's is not enough information for us to know whether the students are going to succeed or not. Research also suggests there is little relationship between high school grade point average and success in college, but a strong relationship between test scores and later success. Test scores have vastly more predictive power than is commonly understood in the popular debate about test scores. The SAT and ACT can help create diverse classes of highly talented students. Restoring tests might also help address a different frustration that many Americans have with the admission process for college. That is, it has become too opaque and unconnected to merit. So I just wanted to share this information. I think it's important. I think we need to improve. You know, it's good to see incremental change, but we need to improve in District 205 for all of our students, not just half of them. Thank you.
No other comments.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 6, the approval of board meeting minutes, or sorry, I should say I missed something. Thank you to everyone who took a time to voice their concerns, support, or perspectives to the Board of Education. Common practice of the board is to follow up with public commenters after the board meeting as needed. Now we'll move to item 6 and board meeting minutes. The approval of regular board meeting minutes from December 19th, 2023. Are there any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, those minutes stand as presented, and then the approval of the closed session minutes from December 19th, 2023. Those meeting minutes stand as presented. Reports and presentations. We'll move on to our first report and presentation, which is Summer Programs 2024 Overview.
Hello again. Rudy, this? Yeah? Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Hello again, and thank you for having me back here again tonight to present an overview of summer programming for 2024. The weather outside is frightful, but our summer programs are delightful. I had to. It was right there for the taking. As you know, District 205 is committed to offering robust summer programming that meets the academic and social-emotional learning needs of all students. And we achieve this through a diverse array of high-quality academic, athletic, and arts learning opportunities. All students have a place in District 205 summer programming. Interest and enrollment in summer programs continues to be very strong. As you may recall, we had well over 3,700 enrollments across all programs last summer. We collected feedback from program leaders, teachers, students, families, and other stakeholders to identify areas where we could build on our successes and pursue opportunities for continuous improvement, which will be seen in our updated procedures and offerings. In the next few minutes, I will provide an overview of programs and their purpose, share a few celebrations of success, and review the next steps in our summer program rollout for 2024. But first, let's remind ourselves of how our summer programs are a natural extension of our strategic priorities as a learning community. Specifically, priorities 1 and 2 speak to both the nature and purpose of our summer offerings. As you'll see on the screen, I took the liberty of calling out certain phrases in bold because you'll see some of that language connected to specific programs on the next few slides. At a high level, here are the programs in District 205 that we are planning to offer to students at each grade band this summer. As in the past, students will have the opportunity to participate in a variety of academic, athletic, and arts programs to meet their needs and interests. And over the next few slides, I'll provide some additional information about these programs by grade band. Programs that cross multiple levels are offered with the same purpose as you see here on this slide. Academic programs focus primarily on providing students the opportunity to develop and maintain essential skills and content knowledge, while elective programs focus on helping students explore their passion and purpose and develop relationships. I want to take a moment to highlight the programs offered to students in early childhood through 5th grade, starting with extended school year, or ESY, which will be offered to students at all levels based on their IEP. Impact for this program is measured by meeting IEP benchmarks and making individual goal progress, and it's funded through special education funds. Academic exploratory programs are fee-based offerings that provide opportunities for students in grades K through 8 to participate in learning experiences beyond what is offered during the normal school year. These include certain Project Lead the Way offerings and the LEGO series. Impact will be measured by stakeholder surveys. Acceleration is a district-funded program and will be offered to recommended students from EC through 8th grade who need additional academic support. Students are identified through a data-driven process, and impact is monitored for these students through assessment and grade data. Jumpstart, which is funded through Title I grants, will be offered in early August to recommended students in primary grades, so they hit the ground running when the school year starts. Oracy will be offered to students in our dual language program at Fisher to provide language acquisition, support, and practice. The Reach Summer Bridge program, which is a self-paced program with weekly office hours funded through Learning and Teaching, is offered to students who are new to the Reach program to prepare them for Reach Math. And a variety of athletic camps and fine arts courses will be offered to students at various grade levels. Impact will be measured by program enrollment and a family survey. Offerings for 6th grade and above will all be located at York. You'll see a continuation of most of the K-5 offerings also for our middle schoolers, including ESY, acceleration, athletics, arts, and exploratory options. New for this year is an offering that is being developed for dual language and Spanish-speaking English learners in the middle school level. Like our other academic offerings, this will be focused on developing and maintaining essential skills and content knowledge. York will also continue to host programs for 9th grade and above, including ESY and a variety of athletic camps. Other offerings include the Academic Summer School program at York, which provides opportunities for 9th through 12th grade students to fulfill some of their graduation requirements over the summer. This opens up their schedule to either accelerate in that course sequence or take an additional elective course based on their interest. Impact of these fee-based programs will be measured by credits earned and a course access student survey. Additionally, there are a variety of programs offered to recommended York students. These include credit recovery for students who need to retake a course, freshman bridge and stretch academies, which are district funded and provide targeted academic support to recommended incoming freshmen, the EL Academy, which will provide students in the high school EL program with targeted support in language acquisition and core academics. This is funded by Title I. Impact for all of these programs will be measured by stakeholder feedback surveys, credits earned where applicable, and assessment data. Those are the programs we plan to offer this year, which are nearly the same as last year's offerings with a few additions to meet the needs of specific student groups. And I wanted to call out, before I end my presentation, a few celebrations as we prepare for this summer. First, students are now identified for acceleration through a data-driven process that includes both external and internal information, including IAR scores, winter map benchmarks, and school-level curriculum-based assessment data. This provides a holistic, unified approach to student identification. Second, students who chose to participate in acceleration last summer saw positive results. While we're still waiting for winter map testing to conclude, our data team has identified that our students who participated in summer acceleration outperformed those who were recommended but could not attend based on this year's fall map assessment. We're continuing to monitor student growth for this group of students to inform any future curricular shifts as well. And finally, with the establishment of the acceleration identification process, the summer program rollout timeline has also been solidified. Registration for all summer programs will be open by the end of February, which is 4 weeks earlier than last year, and it will follow an organized cadence of release for each program. This will provide families, teachers, and other stakeholders the opportunity to solidify their summer plans much sooner. Yay. The next step will be to finalize course offerings within each program. Once courses are determined, the process of opening registration, communicating with our community, and hiring program staff will begin as we look forward to the first day of summer programs, Monday, June 3, 2024. Thank you so much. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have at this time.
And so, sadly, as my son is a senior, I'm new to the summer programming. We've never done it. So, but do I not recall that there was 2 sessions of summer program? Is that still the case?
So that is the case for the York Academic Summer School Program. Students
Just
can
wanna
take,
clarify
yeah,
that
there's
for
a,
our community.
correct, yep. So that program as a whole is a little bit longer. Students can take a course for the first 3 weeks or for the second 3 weeks.
And so what's the
part of that.
breakdown? Because I saw that June 3rd through 27th. Is that the first session, and then the second session starts after that?
June 3rd through 27th is for the majority of our programs, but not for the York program.
Okay.
That goes from June 3rd through like Friday the 22nd, I think, and then the following Monday through the next 3 weeks, ending on July 12. Friday, July 12 is the second session.
And then are all the York offerings available during both sessions?
It depends on student enrollment and what they want to take. We always start the process with a course enrollment request form so that we know what students are interested in, and then based on what they tell us, then we set the schedule and determine when those courses are going to be offered. Session 1, Session 2, both sessions. We're also looking at a special session to accommodate some of our athletic camps, which would cover 6 weeks for just the second half of the day, so we're looking at that as well.
Oh, great.
Yep.
Thank you, as always.
No, of
I
course.
remember when I first moved here, the summer programming was just about sports and athletics, and to see how it's morphed over, the last 5 years is incredible, and I really just kudos to the support your team is putting into all the opportunities our kids have throughout the summer. So really appreciate the effort.
Thank you so much. Many, many good people to thank for that as well. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments? Okay, thank you again for a thorough presentation, and we look forward to this summer. Can't believe I'm saying that. It's January.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time
Of course.
tonight. We will move on to item B, which is the Madison Early Childhood Facility Transition Plan. Dr. Campbell? Is that who I should go to? No.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I am going to intro. So I have 2 colleagues that are going to share some updates regarding our Madison Early Childhood Construction Renovations and Transition Plans. We are so excited and so enthused as a school community as we round out all of our significant and major referendum projects, and teeing that up, one of 2 of our last significant projects being that of Madison, as well as the building of the Churchville Auditorium. But today we're going to specifically focus in on Madison, share some specific updates around that, and then we're going to pass it over to Ms. Lyons, who's going to speak a little bit more and help us understand the Madison programming and how that's going to look next year in a different space as they are undergoing their beautiful building renovations. Mr. Schmidt?
Good evening. A little bit overview of what we plan on doing for renovations over Madison over the next year is put it into more usable space. That building was an elementary school, then it was converted into administration building, then to an early childhood center. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to actually make it an early childhood center instead of just a modified elementary school. We're going to look at the security entrances, move the office from the center of the building to the exterior of the building, upgrade with all the security features that we've been doing at all of our buildings here, part of this referendum. We're going to be putting new windows in. We're going to be demoing probably about 75% of the interior spaces, doing lights, ceilings, new HVAC system, new data cabling, new cameras. Everything we've been doing at all the other facilities, we'll be doing this to the facility for about 12 months for the next school year. With this building, one of the big things what we wanted to look at is if you look at the restrooms, they're just kind of centrally located right there. They're basically the gang toilets like a lot of elementary schools are. It's really not conducive for an elementary or for early childhood to have restroom facilities like that. So one of the big things we're going to do is scatter the restroom facilities throughout the building and make sure that each classroom has access to a restroom or to 2 restrooms. And then we're also adding some restrooms down by the entrance to the playground in case the kids are out there and they have to go. There's a quick access into the building for the restroom instead of going all the way off to the middle of the building. Helps with supervision and everything else there. We're increasing the classroom spaces. They have 11 classrooms right now. We're going to increase it based off of the renovations, make 12 classrooms in there. We're going to take the gym, which is totally underutilized space, and redesign it in more efficient space for some of the staff, conference rooms, and a few other things, teacher work rooms, teacher work areas, and things like that. And then the biggest thing is right now it's, if you can see on there, the main office is in the middle. We're going to put it towards the front, have the secure vestibule, and this will be one of our first projects that will have the actual security window film on these entrances, this in Churchville. And we're looking at, these are some of the renditions out there. This will be the new main entrance. We're looking at painting some murals on the building. On the bottom right, that's going to be like the open resource LRC area. These are some of the corridors and a typical classroom view. A lot of things that we're putting in there, like I said, are identical to what we've been doing at the rest of our facilities for our upgrades.
Okay, so Todd and I have been working very closely with our principals at both Madison and our elementary schools. And so we thought that it would be important to just pause and provide an overview of the type of programming that we provide at Madison Early Childhood Center, since it is very unique and different than our elementary schools. And so we run 3 types of early childhood programs at Madison for a total of about 312 to 318 students within these 3 different programs. So you'll see we have a blended program, which equates to 15 sections. And in those blended classrooms, we have generally about 50% special education students and 50% general education, with 16 students per classroom. And then we also run a one-way dual Spanish blended program. We have 3 sections, and it's very similar to the blended program. However, it's in Spanish. And then we have our self-contained classroom. And we have 4 sections of self-contained, which is up to 10 students. It's smaller because it is 100% of our special education students in those classrooms. So we do have 22 sections that we run in all at Madison, but we run 11 a.m. sections and 11 p.m. sections. So 11 and 11, which equates to that 22. And we are anticipating for next year that we would be running up to 6 sections at Field Elementary School, with the rest of the sections being housed at Edison. And so on the next slide, what we wanted to do is just to show you what that looks like as we take a look at both Edison Elementary School and Field Elementary School. So based on projected enrollment numbers at Edison, we can house up to 9 of those sections at Edison. And you can see how the early childhood classrooms are clustered. And so you'll see EC written in orange at Edison, where those early childhood classrooms and programs will be run. What's important to note is that Edison has housed our has hosted our previous transitions with Field and Lincoln, but that has looked very differently because we have had students able to intermix. And so our Field and our Lincoln students were in the same classrooms with our Edison students. So Eddie Field, for example, right, most recently. This is very different because early childhood runs those AM and PM sessions and runs very specific programming for our earliest children. And so we really have clustered them, as you can see, to ensure that students' needs are met, but they are not able to intermix, if that makes sense, with the early childhood and preschool for all requirements per the state guidelines. So just wanted to make you aware of kind of where they're clustered at Edison. We also have, a growing number of enrollment at Edison, and so we have additional classrooms that are needed, but that we can't accommodate at Edison. And so you'll see at Field Elementary School, you'll see 3 early childhood classrooms. We will house up to 3, again, based on projected enrollment at Field Elementary School. And we're really excited to have our principal at Field, who has also gone through a transition herself, to really serve as a host and support Madison families for next school year. And again, those early childhood programs at Field will not be, mixed in with our Field students. It really is run separately, and it's the AM sections and the PM sections, so up to 6 sections at Field Elementary School. And also just wanted to take a moment to note that we're excited that we're in our final phase of our referendum projects. We're excited to see the transformation this is really going to be providing for our youngest learners on their journey in D205. And then after this transition, right after next school year, and we're already starting to do this, but to really think and reflect deeply about how we can best and most effectively utilize space across all of our 14 schools. So that's where we're headed next, as we're currently, planning this and also thinking ahead of how to maximize and utilize our space across all of our 14 schools. And I'll pass it back over to Todd.
As we look at this, we're going to start beginning moving all the furniture and equipment out of the building in May. Or maybe sooner. The principal just requested some boxes this week, so if they can get ahead of it, we can start moving some of that stuff out. But that's kind of our target, is to start in May. May 30th and June 7th, we'll start moving because we're going to have some of the early childhood over at Edison. We'll make sure we get those classrooms ready to go. Everything we should have moved out by June 21st. We delayed this construction in here because we knew we were going to have a lot more time to move. There's a lot of stuff at Early Childhood Center to make sure we move that out. And plus, given us not bidding some of the construction, not starting until July, is going to help us on the bids. It's going to be very advantageous for contractors who start work early June to hurry up and get that done, especially with some of the environmental work. If we're not going to start it now till July, that's going to help us on our pricing when we go out to bid. And we'll plan on having everything done in June of 25. This is a long time frame for this project. We should have ample enough time, provided there's no delays in logistics or the supply chain. Furniture, we're looking at starting getting that in there probably in April of 25. So we'll be ready to go, start moving everything back as soon as we get the furniture, start moving anything back in June, ready to go for the start of the school year on 25. Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks, Todd. Jim?
About going to bid.
With the bid is a lot of districts, as soon as school's out, when they start their construction projects, they got to sit there and do the move everything out and start doing some of the abatement so they can start the demo and start building everything back. With us, since it's not pressing to get it done in June, because we knew we'd have at least 12 months to get this project done, and we have other projects that we need to get done with our abatement, the contractors can put all their effort in all these other districts in our district that, at the start of June. So then it gives them some time. They don't have to worry about running double shifts, overtime to get the a tight time schedule to get all the abatement done prior to we start with demolition. So based on talking with our environmental consultant who's doing the bid specs for us, he expects us to get very good pricing when we do the abatement bids. And the same thing with the bids that the board did approve here for Madison, kind of showed that where those bids were under what we anticipated because we gave them a little bit, instead of a short summer window, we were giving them 11, 12 months to get the project done.
Got it. Thank you.
So it doesn't negatively impact the timeline. We're still looking, it doesn't put us at risk of not meeting the June finish of 2025.
Correct, because in the bid documents, we anticipated a July start, actually right after the 4th of July, for them to start with the major demolition. Granted, if we get everything done, we may start a little bit sooner, but we told them the start date was after July 4th.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Courtney?
Do you guys have an idea of who's going where, right? In the three, and let me just back up. I really appreciate either letting our community know or reminding our community about the just amazing work that's going on at Madison, because I think sometimes it gets lost in the conversation and how much is going on there, and having everybody explain, having you explain the different types of programs is super helpful. Do you know which programs are going to go where?
So that's a very important question, and we have some general and preliminary thinking based on what we're projecting. Folks that have already shared with us that they will be enrolling once their child turns 3, and our 4-year-olds that we know will be staying. What we're really trying to do right now is to be very thoughtful about families and the different classrooms. We're anticipating that blended classrooms will be housed at Field. However, we're also potentially looking at one self-contained classroom. The other consideration that we really have to take into account are the service providers. So we have a very large staff that is committed to meeting the needs of students for speech and language and all the other varieties that our needs that our students are coming into Madison with. And so we have to think about our staff and how we also support their movement across those buildings. And so depending on the needs of students that come in and the makeup of those classrooms, we don't want to say for sure right now because we are still enrolling students, and we will through, the summer, right? And so we know it's going to be up to 3 classrooms at Field. We are leaning towards blended and potentially one self-contained, but again, we really need to see how that impacts staffing across those buildings and service providers. So we can definitely provide an update, but it is preliminarily, that is what we're thinking right now.
Yeah, mostly for those families that are impacted is really, and I just appreciate the thoughtfulness of it and trying to find the best fit for our staff and our families. So obviously the communication to those families impacted is the most important thing. And if somebody could just reflect on these spaces at Edison and Field. You touched on how in previous blended communities, these spaces were jointly used for classes, Edison and Field kids together, Edison and Lincoln kids together. What was in this space that needs to be moved for these Edison and Field families? How are their classrooms? Like, was there an art room there and now it has to go somewhere else? Is there something that directly impacts what the experience for the families will be moving forward next year?
Yes, and we, in terms of the impacted educators, we went some time just to talk with them to be fair. In terms of at Edison, there are spaces available. We recognize that Edison has served, to support these transitions. Not this year. We're not housing or hosting any schools this year, but the past 2 years. And these classrooms were utilized because we had more of those sections because we were welcoming kids, even though they were jointly supported in those classrooms. And so these classrooms are used, and we are more effectively maximizing that space as we think about the Madison hosting. But there is space to support, so we aren't impacting that much movement in terms of the current staff. But we can definitely share more as we, get our enrollment numbers finalized. But it is something that we're working really closely with both all of our principals and any impacted staff to really support them.
That would be great, because I'm sure those 8 classrooms at Edison and 3 at Field are not empty this year. So I'm just wondering whatever programming or student use, some are empty, okay? How that's impacting those communities is really what I'd like to hear about. And I understand that enrollment will impact that, but it would be great when the picture becomes clearer.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's really great points. I think that hats off to the Board of Education and your forward thinking and foresight, even prior to the 2018 referendum, to think about ways in which we can build capacity internally so that during these major significant renovations, we have space to house all of our students. We are so fortunate here in District 205 that we're able to provide and actually fully tear down buildings and rebuild them in one school year, while also maintaining the level of excellence in service to our students academically as well as socially. And so thank you. We are continuing in the process of engagement with the principal leaders and being respectful of kind of just making sure that we're bringing everyone along and that teachers and staff members. But as mentioned, this is really different than what we've seen before. And so there will be really little, in terms of the student experience and family experience at both Edison and Field, due to the fact that they're just housing this program that will run totally separate from the elementary schedule, which is very different than what we've seen the last few years. But we will, as I want to again just commend our principals and commend Todd as well as Ms. Lyons. There has been an enormous amount of work behind the scenes. We're talking about our early childhood, our 3 and 4 year olds, where we're not able to oftentimes predict the matriculation because we're waiting for new families to enroll into our schools. So there is this element that we're also kind of, really trying to be as predictive as possible based on past enrollment trends that we saw, and we're doing our best within also identifying the various programs, making sure that we're staying within state code as it relates to certain program ratios and number of students. All of that plays a part in the configuration of thinking about this transition plan. So again, thank you to our team. Thank you, Board of Education, for setting us up to get here. I don't know if the board even thought back in 2016, 2017 that we would, Ms. Cafario, you were here, and Mr. Collins was here. So just thank you all for just being so thoughtful and intentional. And now we have this opportunity. Once we're finished and completely done with our renovations, the team is already beginning to explore and reimagine how do we now utilize this space that served a very specific purpose during the referendum project, but how do we utilize that moving forward in continuation of supporting our students' journey along in D205. So thank you.
Okay. Thanks again. Very obviously a thoughtful approach from, taking a facilities plan and thinking about how it impacts kids and specialized programming. A great display of your collaboration and how that's providing for our community. So thanks for your work in that area. This is not an easy thing to do, and we've asked you to do it now for 3 or 4 times. And so you're making it look easy. Appreciate your work there. We can move on then to letter C, the annual audit review. And I will turn over to Mr. Welton.
Thank you. We have Mr. Scott Denser here from Whipley to talk about the ACFR. We used to say the CAFR, but they've changed the name to the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report Scott's team has done a thorough examination in the finance department, so I'll turn it over to Scott.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for having me back again. I remember here it was last year. I think I was here with Andy Mace. He's since retired and moved on to greater things, so I took over some of his clients and shifted around. So thanks for having me back. Just to start with, I want to, before we get into the audit, and I'll touch on some highlights and some things maybe to think of, but I just wanted to go over all what we have to prepare and all our deliverables, I guess, based on a audit performed under government auditing standards, plus what's required by a regulatory body, ISBE. ISBE requires every district in Illinois to fill out a annual financial report. It's a regulatory filing. Every district fills out the same form. It's obviously based on the data that's in the audit, but it's in a different regulatory format, and we compile that and have electronically uploaded that, submitted to ISBE on your behalf. So the regulatory requirements related to ISBE are completed now. Another requirement that we have to do is provide required communication letters. All board members should get a packet that has 3 separate letters. I'll briefly touch on the ones in there. One's related to or talks about internal control. Talks about our responsibility related to internal control. It's not a primary function that we get our responsibility is to understand internal controls, not necessarily rely on them, and we will and identify any areas where we think there might be room for improvement. And we usually would verbally talk to management about that and provide any things. But our audit is a financial statement audit, it's not an in-depth internal control review. The other letter we report is a communication with those charged with governance. It's more of a boilerplate letter. It talks about planning, timing, any new standards that came into effect. There were no new material government auditing standards this year that's incorporated in the 23 report. So it's very similar to last year, and a few other items. And the last letter is a management letter that we always provide each year. That's an optional letter. The other thing that we're required to do based on your district's finances is do a uniform guidance or single audit. That's related to how you spend your federal funds, any federal grant monies that are done. It's not necessarily, it's more related upon compliance with laws and regulations, not necessarily financial performance. So we are those are due March 31st of each year, and the federal government completely changed it around the clearinghouse where those are uploaded to. So we're in the process of wrapping those things up. We're substantially complete. We just need to get those filed, and we'll be working in the next month to get the uniform guidance audit or federal compliance audit uploaded by the deadline. So that will be coming and completed. Finally, I just want to get to the act for Chris mentioned. This report is the most comprehensive financial document that any government can put together. It's the gold standard in financial reporting. It talks about it. Not only does it have the current year, it talks about there's parts in there that do comparative year over year. There's a stats section in the back that contains data for 10-year tables that go back. So this is the highest level of reporting that a district can do, and it's above and beyond what you're required to produce or to put together each year. So that's something to be proud of, I think, to take the extra effort to do this. Each year the district does submit this report to the Association of School Business Officials, ASBO, for consideration for the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. The 22 report did receive that award. That means that this report, the 22 report, contained all the necessary parts and followed all the guidelines that is needed in the ACFR report. It's, as you can tell, it's a 120-page report. It's a big document, and there's a lot of things that go into it, and they go over just about look at every page of the thing and review it backward and forward. It's not a award on financial performance, just on reporting. As in prior years, I'll refer to a couple pages in the report, in the audit report. Page 1 is actually our opinion, our audit opinion. That's what you pay us to do, gather the information, put it together, and issue an opinion on this thing. We did issue an unmodified opinion, otherwise known as a clean opinion. Basically mean we think these financial statements are materially correct. And there's no adjustments that need to be made to them. Just want to point out, like I mentioned, this is a 120-page report, and there's a lot of information in it. If there's one part that I would recommend people look at and potentially read, would be the management discussion and analysis. This starts on page 4. Of the audit report. It's about a 10-page section, 9 or 10-page section that just show highlights, financial performance highlights, over the year, some year-over-year changes in a written format with some tables and graphs. So if there's one part that I recommend people to look at to start, would be the management discussion and analysis. Just want to go over a couple statements here. There's basically in governmental financial statements, there's really two basic sets of financial statements. Here, there's government-wide financial statements, and there's fund financial statements. I'm going to start on the government-wide financial statements. These are on page 14 and 15. They include a statement of net position and a statement of activities. Now, these statements they take all the funds and sort of put them all together. It also would contain any capital items, debt items, bonded debt, pension liabilities, deferred outflows, deferred inflows. So any financial information that affects the district, totally put in one statement, and we get the statement of net position. And it comes out, and at the bottom of it, it reports a net position or an equity piece of it. Net equity this year was almost a negative $61 million. A lot of people sometimes, when I say you have a negative net position, they get a little worried about it. It's not uncommon for school districts in Illinois to have a negative net position. And the reason why is because of a lot of items that you as a board or a district can't even control related to pension liabilities, OPEB or post-employment benefit liabilities. You don't have any control or function or can't affect those in any way by anything you do. So like I said, that's not, it's not uncommon to have a negative net position in here. Year over year, the net position, well, it went from about 51 million deficit to about 61 million year over year. So about a $10 million drop in that position. What I think is more, what people focus on a little bit more, or let me go back to the government-wide statements and net position real quick. Overall, if those are trending up, better, net position going up or going down, that's sort of an overall health. You're getting better or better over. So it's taking a holistic approach to the financial statements. When we get to the fund financial statements, these are, what the district uses a lot more, the day-to-day management of the district, because this is how you budget, this is how you levy your taxes, and this is, basically, how the records are kept month to month. So I'm going to focus on the income statement, revenues and expenditures. And when I look at this a little bit, and I was looking at this, and I like to take out like the debt service and capital project fund, because those are sort of separate. Those are funded by bond issues. Your capital projects, you're spending a lot of money. Your cash, your fund balance is going down. So if I take those out, the district did have actually a positive net income of almost $500,000 in what I would call your operating funds. That would be ed, O&M, transportation fund, IMRF, the working cash. So you did have positive net. That being said, because of your big capital projects and funds, your net fund balance actually went down by about $39 million year over year. But I think that's sort of a little bit expected based on your capital projects and what you're doing there. Just wanted to focus a little bit on page 34. This is a schedule of long-term debt, general obligation bonds payable, just over $206 million right now. You have been doing a lot to your schools, improving them. So, you have the debt there, but you have facilities that are, new, updated, ready to go. You're in every district's a little bit different in their life cycle of where they're at. Total long-term debt is about $258 million. That includes, district portion of pension liabilities, post-employment benefit, other post-employment benefit liabilities makes up, the rest of that amount, along with a little bit of amount for leases, debt certificates. As a whole, what I've been seeing in a lot of the districts that I do is they're really, we're at a point where it's getting a lot of districts are tightening their belt a little bit. The reason being is they're getting hit hard, and I'm sure you are aware of the increased costs related to a lot of contracted services, transportation, utilities. Inflation is a big issue. Any excess federal money that you got related to ESSER CARES money, that has all passed, gone. A lot of my districts had some really good years the last 2-3 years ago, and actually in the height of COVID. Revenues were actually up, expenses down. I see that now sort of swinging the other way where your property taxes are capped at a certain level, and inflation and potentially excess cost for salaries is really going to be a factor for a lot of districts moving forward. So you always have to be vigilant, I guess, there on cost containment once your capital project are finished, because you do not want to have continually decreasing fund balances in your operating funds as you're moving forward, because every year your expenses are going to get a little bit higher, your revenues are going to get a little higher. You don't want your fund balances to drop. They should be moving up a little bit as it goes. So that's just some thoughts, some highlights that I had. I just want to thank Chris and his team for working with us. This is a lot of work to put this report together, and information comes from a lot of different sources too. And it's sort of it's a team effort to get this document put together and issued. So that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board or anybody might have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, yes, a very dense document, and I appreciate you highlighting the district's practice of going above what the state requires when it comes to audits and financial reporting, so that the board and the administration have a thorough understanding of our financial health and even our practices, and them being in line, and of course in complementing compliance and best practice in the educational industry of finance education, however you want to put those two words together. So thank you for a presentation and for a whole lot of information. And again, this is an annual review that takes place every year. We typically see this presentation sooner in the school year, but given our calendar and schedule, we are seeing it now in January. So thank you so much for your time. And I don't think have any other comments. So thank you.
All right. If anybody does have any other comments, please feel free to reach out to myself or anybody.
Yeah, they will share their questions if they have any with Mr. Welton, and we will be in touch.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your meeting.
You too. The rest of your night. Okay, and always nice to have a really good breakdown for those who are interested in that depth of our financial audit, and some highlights to take a look at. I appreciate pointing out certain page numbers, so thanks for that. Next up, we have item 7D, the abatement presentation, and I believe our friend Elizabeth Hennessy is here to talk us through some of the presentation, but I'll turn over to Chris. Maybe you want to intro a little? I'm not sure. Thank you. Straight to Elizabeth. Thank you. Welcome, and nice to see you again.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me tonight. This is kind of our annual consideration of abatements of debt service. So I want to go through this presentation. Firstly, the assumptions. So we wanted to match the assumptions on the 2023 levy with what the district approved for its operating levy in terms of reassessment growth and new property. So reassessment growth refers to just the growth of the tax base, the EAV, due to reassessment, not to new property. So for 2023 levy year, we're looking at reassessment growth of 5.93% and then 0% thereafter. And then we're also matching that assumption for the 500,000 market value home, which we have been using as kind of our benchmark for many years now. So that increase of 5.93% on the $500,000 home brings it to $529,650, and then 0% thereafter, matching our EAV assumptions. New property growth is $34 million in levy year 23 and $30 million thereafter. And that new property growth is additive to the tax base. And as you know, under the tax cap, allows the pie to get bigger and the costs to be shared by more taxpayers in the district. With regard to CPI, we've got a 5% CPI in levy year 23. The district's already passed its operating levy. We've assumed a 3% levy in 24 tax year and 2% thereafter. As I'm sure you have probably heard, the CPI came out last week for December of 23. So between December 22 and 23, the CPI increase was 3.4%. That's a super important number for all school districts and all issuers under the tax limitation law, because that is the actual number that will be the limit for the 23 levy year. But just again, to be consistent with what the assumptions were before we knew that number, we're doing 3% in levy year 24 and 2% thereafter. What we're talking tonight about is the debt service payments with regard to abatement. So it includes all outstanding bonds plus 1% loss in collection from the DuPage County Clerk and a placeholder for future non-referendum bonds starting in 2025. So non-referendum bonds, the district has some outstanding and they're going to be paid off after 24. So we've always had a placeholder in the projections in case the district chose to issue future non-referendum bonds. If not, those levies just go down on a parallel basis. So the deadline for the debt service abatement resolution that will impact the 2023 levy year is February 28th, actually February 29th, because it's a leap year. So I know the board is, if you decide to move forward with any of these options, would have to take action at its February 20th board meeting. Okay, so our first option, and hopefully you guys have this on your screen so you can see these numbers, is the current situation, showing no abatements. And just to go through this chart, starting on the left-hand side, we're showing just a 10-year history so you can get a feel for what's happened the last 10 years with EAV, actual new property, the prior year's extension, CPI, calculation of the limiting rate, which gives you the maximum amount of operating extension you can levy. And so it's all actual through levy year 22. Levy year 23 is matching the district's assumptions on its levy that you approved back in November, December. And just moving again across the page, we've got, after the operating extension, the percent increase just on the operating portion of the levy. Moving to the right on the debt service extension, that's the total debt service outstanding for the district, plus that 1% loss in collection. And then the abatement column reflects the abatements the district's done over the last year. So in 2020, the district did a rather large abatement of $3,175,896. Then 0 in 21, and then in 22 levy year, you abated $969,348. So that again impacts the debt service extension, and typically the district uses operating funds to make that abatement. Moving to the right, the next column is the total debt tax extension, combining operating and debt service, and the percent increase year over year on that. Then the tax rate, the home, which you can see is $500,000 up till 22, and then 23, because we're using a reassessment on the EAV, we have a reassessment on that home value. And we're just keeping it there at that level going forward. Moving across to the right, the impact on the home reflects the actual taxes paid by that owner of the $500,000 home, and then the increase and decrease in the far right column. So the table, the graphic below, shows just the debt service extension portion of the levy from 2018 with these assumptions through levy year 28, and I kind of put a circle around 23 and 24 so you can see where those bars, what those payments are in comparison to each other, because you know, I think it's just a good consideration for you to know what's happening now in 23 versus 22, and you know, we want to, what we were talking about in prior years is kind of creating a stable debt service levy plan, landing, if you will, on the runway at a very level, predictable amount of debt service to pay after we get through this 21, 22, and 23 years. And the reason those years are important is because if you remember going back to the 2018 referendum, when the board approved that referendum, you had outstanding debt from other issues, other prior issues. And so we refunded a portion of it, but we did know we would have some high watermarks to get over in these tax years. So, you know, this 23 year looks high. It's not as high as 22 would have been if you didn't do the 969,000 abatement, but we're still at one of those higher watermark years where we're just at the 16 million level, and then also in 24, and then in 25 through 28 and thereafter, we kind of come back down to that same 15,442,000 level on the debt service payments. So this first option again is just current situation, where we are without any future abatements. So you can see between 22, which the payment was 15,442,000, and 23 going up to 16,075,981, there's a slight increase in that debt service payment. Next page shows option 2. This looks at abating in 23 levy year $633,825, and that brings a payment pretty much equal to what you levied for debt service in the year 2022. So you can see those bars 22 and 23 are at the exact same height. If we don't do anything in 24 with regard to abatement, we'll have a slight increase back up close to that 16 million bar. But after that, back down to 15,442,000 without the need for future abatements. And as we talk about every year, this is a year-by-year decision for the board. So we're looking at the runway forward, the runway behind us, and, you know, but we're not making any decisions on those. We're just deciding about 23 levy year. So those are the two options. We did bring another example of what it would look like if the district, for example, chose to abate 1.5 million. And that would bring the bar in 23 down below where you were in 2022 by almost, $1 million net. And then in 24, the bar would jump back up to 16 million. So that is that kind of rocky road thing where we abate and bring the levy way down like we did in 2020, and then in 21 we'll have an increase. We had a big increase. So taxpayers do feel that. I mean, this is not the largest part of your levy. Obviously, the operating funds are, but, we want to try to level these things. So when you look at this example, we can certainly do this, but if we do so next year in 24, we'll be looking at abating even more if the goal is, in fact, to keep things level. So let's go to the last page and just look what the difference between option 1 and 2. Sorry, I'm not. There we go. Option 1 and 2 mean to the home. Again, we're looking at the home valued at $529,650. In option 1, the payment is $7,514. With the abatement of $633,000, the option 2 payment is $7,475, giving a $39 savings. And then again, the total funds needed for abatement. So just want to open it up to questions.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We'll consume a little here and see if there's any questions or comments about the options or the forecasts from the board. Go ahead, Karen.
Can you just kind of restate or go over, is this option, whatever this is, I guess, option 2, with 633,000 abatement, does that keep it pretty flat for the taxpayer?
It does. Now, next year, we're going to have about a $500,000 increase in 24 levy year. It goes up to $15,967,000. So most likely, if you want to keep it perfectly flat, you'll have to do another abatement next year of about the same amount. But after that, perfectly flat.
Okay, because the other bond, the other debt falls off. Is that right?
Yes. We're basically getting over the hump of paying off some of those.
The peak.
The peak,
Yeah.
right. Some of
Okay.
those older bonds, right.
Okay.
And did I understand this correctly, that we have a set of bonds that are rolling off in 2025? And it sounds like there's a future decision to be made about renewing or discontinuing those bonds at that time.
Correct.
Okay. And what is the timeline for that decision? Is that something that we hear about in 2024 at some point?
Probably, yes.
Okay. Are we anticipating like the end of this calendar year?
Yes, I would suggest, let's see, to 25 levy, you really have a couple years before you need to make a decision on that. So, what we're talking about is a non-referendum. It's not a ton of money. Bottom line is the levy's maximum, if I recall, is just under $2 million a year. So, but it is a nice option to be able to levy those without increasing the tax rate because they are folded in here. Or if you don't, the tax rate for debt goes down. But the good news is that debt service extension base, the ability to issue those non-referendum bonds never goes away.
Oh, okay.
So it's a great thing. The only problem is if you let it drop, then it's got to go back up. But, we can talk about that later.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say to really start making a decision next year at this time, start discussing it. And then the following year, really, you have until January, February of 26 to access that 2025 levy.
Okay.
So that's your drop dead date on that. decision, yeah.
So that decision's about a year out, or we'll start exploring options about a year away from now.
Yes.
But knowing that the board at that time will have those two options to either roll off and provide some tax relief to the taxpayer or maintain and keep stability over time has been the pattern of past
Yes.
decision-making. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I just ask a clarifying question? That the column on the right, the increase, decrease, Elizabeth, that is the yearly increase
Yes, year
to a
over year.
taxpayer for the 500, I guess it's now, we're not doing 500,000 now, we're doing $529,000 home, which I guess is good that our property values are going up. But so that 281 with the no abatement is an annual increase, not a monthly or
Annual.
annual. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? This is a presentation that we're seeing tonight with board action to be taken at our next board meeting. So also encouraging, if you feel good about where you're at with the information we have, great. Otherwise, speak now for more information in order to make a good decision in February. Okay, seeing none. Elizabeth, I want to say thank you again. It's always a pleasure to see you. And thank you for your work in partnership with the district. We always appreciate your knowledge and experience to help us through these difficult conversations and decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're moving on to the consent agenda. Is there anything anybody would like to pull from the consent agenda? Seeing nothing, can I have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
I move that the Board of Education approve the following consent agenda items: A, personnel; B, financial reports; C, bid 2406 York Cafe roof replacement; and D, supplemental staffing contract Emerson School psychologist.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mrs. Troutman, second by Ms. Hostler. Please call the vote.
Mrs. Troutman, yes. Mrs. Hostler,
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio,
Yes.
Dr. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mrs. Assef,
Yes.
Mrs. Arvanitis.
Yes, 7 ayes, 0 nays, motion passes. Agenda action items, we have item A, approval of the resolution of the Board of Education transferring money from the operations and maintenance funds to the debt service fund. Is that something Mr. Welton will be speaking on?
It is. This transfer is from the operation and maintenance fund to the debt service fund. This is in accordance with the state accounting manual, and it is required for the auditors that we pay the debt service, and these are for debt certificates out of the debt service fund. So this is an annual transfer that we do.
Can we have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution to transfer money from the operations and maintenance funds to the debt service fund for the purpose of payment of debt certificates for fiscal year 24.
I'll second.
Motion by Mrs. Hostler, second by Dr. Henry. Are there any comments from the board? Seeing none, please call the vote.
Mrs. Hostler,
Yes.
Dr. Henry,
Yes.
Mrs. Troutman, yes. Mrs. Assef,
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mrs. Arvanitis.
Yes, 7 ayes, 0 nays, motion passes. Item B is the approval of the resolution of the Board of Education transferring money from the educational fund to the debt service fund. Mr. Welton?
This one is very similar to the last, except it's from the education fund because it's for technology leases from the education fund to the debt service fund for technology leases.
Can we have a motion? On mic? Are you on mic? Thank you.
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution to transfer money from the education fund to the debt service fund for the purpose of payment for the technology leases.
I'll second.
Beth beat you. Motion by Dr. Henry, second by Ms. Hassler. Are there any comments from the board? Seeing none, please call the vote.
Dr. Henry? Yes. Mrs. Hassler?
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mrs. Assaf?
Yes.
Mrs. Troutman? Yes. Mrs. Arvanites?
Yes, 7 ayes, 0 nays, motion passes. We have the approval of the D205 website vendor contract. Ms. Daniels?
Thank you. As you may recall at last month's board meeting, I shared an overview of the process so far as it pertains to the exploration of finding a new website provider and a complete overhaul of our website. Following that meeting, we proceeded with our final update meetings with Aptigee, the company that we chose to move forward with in negotiations, including finalizing details of an outline deliverables for a potential contract, reference checks, and contract price negotiations. Today, we're presenting the final negotiated contract with Aptigee as the new website provider for District 205. As a district, we're always looking at ways to reduce costs, and as that memo outlines, I'm excited to share that in addition to an upgraded user experience for both the front end and back end, we would be able to save a potential of $18,000 per year by switching companies. The proposed contract agreement includes a standard 3-year commitment and provides an option to renew for an additional 2 years at the end of the initial 3-year term. Pricing for each year would remain flat with no increase, and the increase would not be brought forward until the 6th year if we chose to move forward, and that would be a 5% increase already shared upfront for us, should we choose to renew again. Once a contract is approved, staff would utilize the remainder of the current school year to build the website, migrate content, and conduct staff trainings with the optimal goal of launching for the 24-25 school year. The administration recommends approving the proposed contract with Aptigee and authorizing the signature of the same pending final legal review.
Great, thank you. Can we have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the proposed contract with Aptigee and authorize the signature of the same pending final legal review.
Second. Motion by Mrs. Hassler, second by Mrs. Assaf. Are there any comments from the board? I just want to say thank you. Seeing that cost savings in there is great, but also knowing that we're going with a provider that's going to provide a more robust platform, but also meet the district's needs. Also, just a thank you for the future work that's about to be taken on. Updating and creating an entirely new website is a heavy lift, and it takes a lot of work, and I'm sure you'll be working on that for longer than the launch date, just because it takes time. But of course, we can launch and continuously improve what we're doing. So thank you for your time and your future energy in that realm. Can we please call the vote?
Mrs. Hassler?
Yes.
Mrs. Assaf?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Dr. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Troutman? Yes. Mrs. Caforio?
Yes.
Mrs. Arvanites?
Yes, 7 ayes, 0 nays, motion passes. Finally, we have the approval of the school year 24-25 middle school schedule, and that goes to Dr. Grenz.
Good evening, everyone. Following up here on our December presentation in which we walked through some of the rationale behind the changes to the middle school schedule, which again was implemented in 2017-18. Those changes include state level ISB requirements as it relates to state code as well as instructional learning standards. We did go through a robust learning process with what we call our middle school schedule collaborative. They helped us inform and provide feedback. We looked at various data points throughout the process as well, which is how we arrived at these schedule adjustments. At a high level, the 24-25 schedule that we're proposing is focused on comprehensive academic program, merging both the middle school philosophy as well as what we are calling junior high opportunities. More specifically, the schedule includes 55 minutes daily for ELA, math, science, and social studies. The biggest shifts being science and social studies now occurring daily, and then 40 minutes daily for the electives. We do continue to propose and offer 9 elective options. Those include everything from band, orchestra, choir, Spanish for all grades, PLTW, and the Unified Arts Wheel, which is art, family and consumer science, general music, and industrial tech. As we discussed, we will not be offering creative technology in 6th grade due to some overlapping curriculum, but we will in 7th and 8th. Some of the next steps in the process based on the feedback we received in the last meeting as well as some of the plans already in place. We're to continue to utilize the feedback from our collaborative to help with some of the transition, continuing to engage the principals as it relates to staffing, as well as scheduling details, redevelopment of the use of time for the current flexible learning lab model, both to establish consistent practices across the 3 schools with that 30 minutes, particularly for students not engaging with the necessary interventions. We also want to identify any professional learning needs. Some of that work has already been in progress to support these new time allocations. And then lastly, I want to emphasize the assurance here of curricular and instructional resources for proposal, even possibly in the spring here, to build knowledge across core content areas to support what we are saying is a comprehensive learning experience. This will all be in alignment with any of those materials that we propose annually on a regular basis to the Board of Ed at the February meeting.
Thank you. Can we have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the 24-25 middle school schedule as presented.
Second.
Sorry, waiting for me. Motion made by Mrs. Troutman, second by Mrs. Assaf. Are there any comments from the board? Beth?
Yeah. Can you just speak a little bit to the minutes for English, language arts, and math, and the history of that? How, what a typical classroom, how many minutes we normally see, the change that we made several years ago, and then where we're landing now and how that compares to a typical math or ELA class.
Sure. A little bit of clarity that I think is needed is we did have, prior to the 17-18 shift, we had a double section of ELA. So that may have been missed in the last presentation. So I want to emphasize that clarification. As it relates to the current schedule, when you step back and look at it on an annual basis, students in ELA and math have 13,200 minutes annually on ELA and math currently. This shift would bring it to 9,680 minutes annually. When you look at science and social studies currently, the students have 6,600 minutes annually. The shift would bring it up to 9,080 minutes annually. So it's an increase of almost 3,080 minutes on an annual basis, basing that on a 176-day calendar. So we are looking at that shift, realizing that there may be ramifications to that and adjusting accordingly and making sure that we plan with strong curricular materials as well as the design and the use of our time.
I'm going to thank you for that, Carrie. You'll just chime in and give a little more explanation behind that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think right when we're thinking about the instructional minutes, we're also thinking about what science and social studies are doing. So Dr. Gren's last point was really ensuring that the curricular and instructional resources build knowledge across core content areas. So for example, our middle school science classrooms use Amplify Science, and so part of that resource is literacy-rich activities, right? And so they support in making claims, leveraging evidence, drawing conclusions from data, right? So they're reading highly technical and complex texts in their science courses, right, that we sometimes think of, oh, that only happens in that ELA block, but they're doing that in the context of science and then practicing those skills in their science classrooms. So our middle school science teachers have actually been engaging in a series in the August Institute Day. They participated in a session around supporting all learners to access complex texts, right, because we know those are really rigorous texts that they might not have been familiar with prior. So really thinking about, although those individual courses might have a reduction in minutes, when we're thinking about the student's whole experience across those content areas, them accessing those different skills and different contents.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And then what is typical length of a math and ELA classroom, like in comparable districts?
I think it depends on where you look. I will say the quote that we received from the Illinois State Board of Ed, and I can read it to you. This comes from their Department of Standards and Instruction. Elmer's D205's decision to implement a schedule for the academic year that includes daily science and social studies demonstrates a commitment to providing a well-rounded education for its students in the upcoming years. The 55 minutes daily devoted to ELA, math, science, and social studies, and the 40 minutes daily for electives and PE will compare favorably with the other school districts and will ensure that students have the opportunity to receive a comprehensive education. This is a significant step towards providing a well-rounded education for students and ensuring their success in the future. So one of the things that the states shared with us is that oftentimes when they're planning instruction as well as mandates, filtering the incoming demands that go on to classes, they're looking at the minutes of instruction as well. So they shared that this was a positive move for us to meet some of those requirements.
Great. And I guess I just want to make sure that our community understands that where we were before with math and ELA was well above what a typical, we increased the minutes and switched the social studies and science classes, correct? So now we're evening that out across the board with our math and ELA and social studies and science, correct?
Yes, that is correct. We are, in Elmhurst, we are really looking at both the junior high philosophy and merging that also with the middle school philosophy. So with that, we really value the comprehensive academic experience, and we feel in order to elevate that, we need to designate appropriate time to the core content areas. We also have the privilege of being a unit district, which means we're able to then track the impact of student learning from elementary to middle school and to high school. So another part of this conversation has been the engagement with across our middle school to our high schools to really look at the articulation and what the academic experience is being that students have in middle school and how that can appropriately set them up to be most successful in high school. So elevating that while also staying true to the value of our community that has been elevated around the pursuit of purpose and passion, which means we did not reduce the number of electives that students and families have the opportunity to explore in middle school, while also elevating the core academic and making sure that that's a comprehensive experience. So I think what you see and what's being presented and what we've been talking about and what our schedule collaborative has been exploring is how do we, there is no perfect schedule, but how do we best create and develop a schedule that closely aligns to the values of our community while also upholding both philosophies that are at play. Going back to your question about previous districts, there has been work and exploration and looking at other districts and the amount and the allocation and all of that that depends on what philosophy that particular districts are holding on to. And so because we are bringing these two together, I think what we're presenting to you is the best movement forward as it relates to the allocation of minutes in order to capture the holistic, comprehensive experience that we value here in D205.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful. And I love the idea that students will be getting those ELA and math pieces in science and social studies as well. So they'll be able to learn those things in a different, class with different subjects and topics. And so that's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Kara.
Yeah, just really a comment. I hope that, we saw some good, if I remember correctly, our data showed us some good growth in our 6th grade and maybe 7th grade. And I just hope that in this schedule change that momentum won't be lost. So whatever has been working and helping our students grow in some really great ways, especially in ELA, that will be continued and that a schedule change won't kind of slow that down, I guess. So.
Any other comments from the board? I just had one thing about this process that the team has gone through. Again, another large undertaking. This is a big movement but really commending your team for focusing on their priorities. And one was what was best for students and maintaining a comprehensive educational experience that prepares them for life after the grade that they're in right now, if I could say that, right, to progress naturally to the next school year. And I just want to reiterate one point about, so thank you to your team. It was very intentional and thoughtful process you all went through. And I know that many people were involved because my own daughter has come home, a middle schooler, and shared what she's learned about the new schedule or potential for a different schedule next school year. So it's out there and people are working and really being thoughtful, and it's even getting as far as to the students, which I think is a great sign of the collaboration. I just wanted to highlight one more piece and I just want to make sure that this piece is clear that, you know, in education, just across the board, many times when you're looking at students and their performance, right? A student who might be stuck somewhere in their science curriculum, sometimes it does have to do with because they might be stuck somewhere in that same moment in their math curriculum, and the synergy that exists between content areas. Math and science marry naturally, and so do our state standards, but so do ELA and social science, social studies. And so that reading skill, the math skill building is happening, not like maybe when we went to school in one subject in that classroom. It's happening throughout their educational experience and the whole day, from STEM and Project Lead the Way opportunities to other elective courses too. So even language learning and what that does for reading. And so that synergy exists. And I think what I hear you saying is there's some intentionality around students' growth and what they're learning and their preparation for the next school year, and then eventually high school, of course, the importance of middle school. In that if I know your team at this point, that at some point you'll have some, along with your continuous improvement philosophy, some moment where you're looking back and not even a moment, but continuously saying, like, how's it going? How are our students doing? Let's look at the data, have our scores. What are teachers telling us? What are kids and families telling us about this shift? And taking that approach to open feedback and communication from those experiencing it the following school year is so important. So, and I'm seeing nods, so you're agreeing with me that's in your plan, so I appreciate that. Any other comments from the board about the middle school schedule before we call the vote? Or Dr. Campbell?
Yes, I'm getting the eyes from a team member. I also want to just also mention this idea of we are, as a school district, we're in a unique position where we are preparing to have our dual language program also now move into the middle school. And so this schedule, all of those pieces are taken into consideration as well, and thinking about the opportunity that we will have to provide our dual language students with a core content area to receive it in Spanish, one of our core content areas, which is huge and really significant. So in this, I appreciate that thought, that we're looking at academic implications. We are in student success outcomes. We are looking at programmatic implications. We are also deeply looking at staffing and knowing that human capital is our greatest resource, how all of that plays. So this is a very large undertaking, and I want to again appreciate Dr. Grins and his work for leading the charge with bringing this collaborative together, as well as our middle school principals and Ms. Leischel that has really taken a very, invested, thoughtful, strategic time, and also putting in place how we're going to come back and reflect to know if our intended outcomes are being met by this particular shift.
Thank you. If there are no other comments, can we please call the vote?
Mrs. Troutman? Yes. Mrs. Assef?
Yes.
Mrs. Hostler?
Yes.
Dr. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio?
Yes.
Mrs. Arvanites?
Yes, 7 ayes, 0 nays, the motion passes. On to our next item on the agenda, FOIA requests. Dr. Campbell?
1 FOIA request for communications on documentary, granted. 1 FOIA request for Local 571 communication and grievances, not in possession, and denied. 1 FOIA request for discipline forms, not in possession. 1 FOIA request for legal expenses, granted. And 1 FOIA request for the number of grievances, an anonymous request documentation, granted, and partially, part of that was not in possession, so it was partially granted.
Okay, and on to communication highlights.
Prior to turning it over, I'm going to actually, to Ms. Daniels, I'm going to ask Ms. Lyons just to share part of our communication. One particular aspect of our communication highlight revolves around our new families to the district. Our kindergarten families, this is a really exciting undertaking, and I wanted her to just kind of give a brief public announcement about this, and then she will pass it to Ms. Daniels, who also has been intricately involved and have worked very closely with this
Yes,
project.
thank you to Tanya, who sent out lots of communication through Parent Square, but we have an upcoming kindergarten family information night here at the district on January 24th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. So we already have over 60 families who have RSVP'd that they will be attending. And that's only families within the district that receive the Parent Square communication. So we've also had lots of phone calls and interest from families outside of the district, very new families. So we are expecting a great turnout, which we are really excited to welcome our new families, but also to provide an overview of kindergarten for even returning families as curricular shifts have been made. And so the goals of the night really are to definitely learn about the enrollment process and requirements, the nuts and bolts that are, on everyone's mind. But we're going to squeeze in there curricular programming and highlights, of course, to talk about what kindergarten students experience and how students can really support their students from the beginning of their journey throughout. And so we'll also provide the different programming options. So we're excited. Please pass the word along. Tanya has made some, and her team have made some amazing flyers. Outreach has been made to all the local daycares, so lots and even more. So we're very excited. January 24th from 6 to 7:30 here at the district office. We'll kick it off with Dr. Campbell's welcome and then go into kind of the nuts and bolts and programming overview. So very excited to welcome our new families on the 24th.
It sounds like a great way. I mean, especially with your firstborn coming into what I would call a fairly large district and a tight-knit community, but still bringing people in to a warm and welcoming environment where they can have their questions answered and where they can really understand their child's experience and educational experience from kindergarten. It's just a wonderful opportunity, so thanks for putting that together. It's great. Now to Ms. Daniels for her highlights of communication, more communication.
Sure. So an objective under the Student Success Priority of the District 205 Journey of Excellence states that we will provide all students a variety of pathways to identify and explore their passions and purpose. As Dr. Hurt mentioned in the York Spotlight this evening, York Drama kicks off their winter musical this week, and I thought it would be appropriate to share a video that our team created recently highlighting an area of the York Performing Arts programs, the dance program. Please enjoy this tremendous video about the York Dance Program.
I love everything about dancing. I love the physical aspect of it. I love the creative aspect of it. I love the community that we create and all the dances that we form. I love everything about it.
So the dance program here at York, my goal is to create a space for everyone. So we have an introductory level class, that's our Dance 1 class. It's where I expose the students to all different genres of dance. I pack a lot in that first semester so that they just get a taste. And then hopefully at some point throughout that semester, they're like, ooh, I really like salsa. Ooh, this jazz is really fun. Hopefully they find something they gravitate to. And then from there, the students are welcome to continue on through the programs. And our concert level dance class is our highest level. Students in concert dance audition, or it's by teacher placement, and those students are seeking out opportunities to learn choreography for the sake of performance.
I think one of the big things I think about is technique. Since I've been trained, so that's kind of always something that's always on my mind. Am I pointing my toes? Are my legs straight? All of that. Once I get that, I think it more shifts to facial expressions and body language and how I'm portraying the emotions of the dance rather than like how accurate it looks.
I think more often than not, students are surprised by how good they are, or that it is a natural thing, or that it is a thing that's good for them, because either physically it feels good, or it's a sense of therapy for them, or they're just coming because they're like, hey, this is a safe room, and it feels different than all the other classes that I walk into. So really trying to just get the kids to be like, yeah, this is vulnerable, this is weird, but man, is it good for us.
There's so much energy in this room all the time. You don't really get that in a normal classroom or a normal gym class. And on top of that energy, there's a community aspect to this as well, because we're creating art. So the combination of energy and community all in one space really creates for a super unique environment. Miss Jensen definitely teaches and leads by example. I feel like I come in every single day and there's a smile on her face, which just makes me happy and want to learn, want to grow as a performer, as a dancer.
She does a great job of being able to teach us, but in a way that we understand. If she realizes that we're not getting something, she either changes it or talks to us a different way.
I just think I've been so lucky to have dance as an avenue to teach me so much about life, and it's so much more than just teaching dance steps. Humans are meant to move, we're meant to express ourselves. Music does it to us, so if you have a love for music, you're absolutely going to enjoy a dance class.
Super cool. Thanks for putting that together. Nice little insight on a segment of our opportunities for kids. That's great. Finally, we'll move to item 11, which is board communications. Are there any board member reports or sharing of information?
I just want to give a huge shout out to the district and all of our teachers out there for the last 5 days. You know, this was the inaugural flexible learning plan reveal, and I think you guys just hit the perfect balance, right? The perfect balance of a snow day on Friday when kids could go out and play in the snow and let them have that, which is what we promised our community when we talked about flexible learning last year. And then today, when nobody was going outside, you know, safely keeping our kids and families and staff members home, but still implementing that learning plan. So just a huge shout out. I think it was a huge success, forward thinking from when you put it together last year. And I really do feel like an implementation of it was really well done over this weekend. So thank you to all our staff and our teachers for really rocking it, especially those kindergarten teachers who had to juggle all those littles on Zoom. I'm very proud of you all. But no, thank you very much.
Very good. Yes, it was a good day had by all. All right, we'll move to upcoming meetings. We have a committee of the whole meeting taking place on February 7th at 5:30 p.m. and our next regular scheduled board meeting is on February 20th at 7:30 p.m. Both meetings will be held here at District 205 Center in room 215 and 216. It is 9 o'clock and we are adjourned.